first moved into that building, I thought I had found the best deal in the entire city. The apartment was cheap, suspiciously cheap, but the place looked normal enough. Old, quiet, a little worn down, but livable. The landlord barely asked me anything. He just handed me the keys, pointed toward the fourth floor, and told me most of the tenants kept to themselves. That was perfect for me. I work from home, and I like silence. My apartment was on the fourth floor, and outside my door, there was a long, narrow hallway with old yellow lights that hummed quietly above the ceiling panels. At the far end of the hallway, there was supposed to be a door that led to the emergency stairwell. At least that's how I remember it on the first day. The first strange thing happened the very first night. I woke up sometime after 3 in the morning and couldn't fall back asleep. So, I stepped out into the hallway just to clear my head, and the first thought that crossed my mind was that the hallway felt longer, not by much, maybe just a few meters, but enough to make me stop and stare toward the end where the stairwell door should have been. I told myself I had probably just remembered it wrong. Old buildings can mess with your sense of space sometimes. So, I went back inside and forgot about it. For a few days, everything seemed normal, but then I started noticing small things. The lights in the hallway seemed dimmer at night. The walls looked older somehow, like the paint had aged years overnight. And every time I walked down that corridor after midnight, it seemed to stretch a little farther. About a week later, I walked down the hallway, expecting to reach the stairwell door, like always. But instead, there was a corner, a turn in the hallway that I was absolutely certain had never been there before. I stood there for a long time staring at it, trying to convince myself I was just tired or confused. That same evening, I ran into an old man who lived 2 doors down from me. I had seen him before, but we had never spoken. He looked exhausted, pale, like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. When I told him I had just moved in, he stared at me in a way that made me deeply uncomfortable. And before he stepped into his apartment, he said something I still can't forget. He said, "If you wake up after 3 in the morning, do not go into the hallway." He said it quietly, like someone who had repeated that sentence too many times. Then he closed the door and left me standing there alone. I tried to laugh it off and convince myself he was just another strange old tenant. But a few nights later, I woke up again. It was 3:14 in the morning, and this time I woke up because I heard footsteps outside my door. Slow footsteps. I sat in bed, listening carefully. One step, then silence, then another step. The rhythm felt wrong, too slow, too deliberate. After a few minutes, curiosity got the better of me, and I opened my door. The moment I stepped into the hallway, I knew something was wrong. The corridor was enormous now, far longer than it had ever been. The lights flickered weakly above me, and the walls looked ancient, cracked and peeling, with dark stains running down them, like the building had been abandoned for decades. But the worst part was the doors. There were dozens of them, old wooden doors with rusty numbers nailed above the frames. I knew for a fact they hadn't been there before. As I walked past the first door, I heard something behind it, a whisper, so quiet I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Then another door produced a quiet sobbing sound, then scratching, like fingernails, slowly dragging across wood. I opened one of the doors and found nothing inside except dust and cracked walls. The moment I stepped back into the corridor, the whispering returned. As I walked deeper into the hallway, I noticed one of the doors had a small metal nameplate attached to it. When I leaned closer to read it, my heart nearly stopped. It had my name on it, my full name, written exactly the way it appears on my apartment door. For a moment, I stood there frozen, telling myself someone must be playing a prank. But when I reached for the handle, the door slowly opened by itself. Inside, I saw my apartment, but it looked different, older. The furniture was the same, but everything was covered in dust. The walls were cracked, and the lights were dead. It looked like my apartment after years of abandonment. I slowly backed away from the doorway and turned around, and that was when my stomach dropped. My real apartment door was gone. There were only more doors stretching endlessly into darkness. That was when I saw them. Figures standing along the walls of the corridor. People completely still, their heads lowered. I walked closer, my footsteps echoing through the endless hallway. And when I was only a few meters away, every single one of them lifted their heads at the exact same time. Among them, I saw the old neighbor. He looked at me with empty eyes and quietly said, "I told you not to come out after 3. My voice barely worked when I asked him what this place was. He looked down the endless corridor and then back at me and said, "When a door appears with your name on it, you cannot leave anymore." I tried to run, but the hallway only stretched farther with every step. The lights behind me shut off one by one. My legs became heavier and heavier until eventually I could not move anymore. Now, I stand here against the wall, like the others, unable to move, unable to leave. And every night, somewhere far down the hallway, another door slowly appears, and someone new steps into the corridor, thinking it is just another apartment building, just like I once did.